Good evening. Welcome to Tampa Fishing Outfitters Live Fishing Report. As you can see, you've just got a pair of us tonight.
Just a pair. Just a pair, baby.
Myself, Captain James. Going to be talking some fishing. Boy, fishing's been
hot.
Well, let me say this correctly. It's been hot while fishing the last few days. Fishing's been good, but boy.
It's coming, hot. Man. May is normally that month where you start to get hot.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the water temperature starts getting hot, and, you know, inevitably it leads me anyway, to start fishing in some deeper water, fishing, you know, out in the bay. The tarpon are starting to show up. The mackerel bites firing off. The snapper are going to start going on. So it really is that time of year where, you know, last year I think we wore straw hats about this time of year.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
I was dying for one this weekend.
And, you know, it's that time of year, especially when you get a clear day. Oh. You know, that's the worst. You know, you always want a little bit of overcast this time of year. You don't want the rain. You know, it normally brings it, but it's always nice to have a little bit of overcast or a little bit of shade to kind of stay cool.
We were doing we were doing some red fishing in the middle of the week, and I had some clients after 2 hours say, game over. Luckily, we caught enough fish, and they were happy, but, you know, it was blasting hot. So a 4-hour trip turned into 2 hours of fishing and 2 hours of taking them to
riding around
to hang out.
Hey, but do what you got to do.
Plenty of sunblock in use. Yeah, I can't believe how fast I'm going through sunblock. Like the reapplying, and man.
I keep a jar, and I use the zinc for my face and stuff, and everybody says I still don't use enough, man. But, like, while I'm in the morning brushing my teeth and everything, the first coat, you know, and then normally about 10:30, and you're right, Joe, hoodies are a must, buffs, you know, all that kind of stuff. I've really started liking the hoodie shirts, you know, the shirts that have the hoodies built into them.
Have you seen the Sims ones here?
You wear them quite a bit.
That's all I wear.
There's some of them, and, you know, for me, when I first started, or when those first started being a little more popular, and I was like, yeah, that's a pretty good idea. I got a few, and a few of them don't fit right. Like the length of the hoodie is too short. So, you know, when you're moving around or you're working, they kind of pull down on your head. Yep. So there's a few different ones that I like, and I always look for and I try them on to make sure that the hood is nice and loose, you know, nice and big and kind of baggy. It tends to be a little bit better when you're fishing or even, you know, throwing the net or doing what you're doing.
No doubt. So we got you covered, Rick. Don't even worry about it, bud. You just do the next right thing.
Rick's up in Georgia getting a few things handled up there, so we're covering for him tonight. But anyway, like I said, we got a good show, guys. As always, if you've got any questions or comments or things you want us to cover as we kind of go through the next hour fish talk here, just let us know. We'll do our best to kind of scroll up and answer any questions that you've got. But let's get right in there and kind of dive in. I know last week's show was a little bit of a struggle getting it on the air.
Yep.
You guys had some issues connecting to Facebook and whatnot. And so just as a little recap, for folks that didn't pick that up and get to see it, we do want to thank Captain Danny Garino for coming in and spending his time, not only with us to try to explain the trout situation, but also going up and, taking his time to go to the meetings and really, represent the voice of a lot of different people's opinions. So
we want to. Eric, you don't waste any time, man.
Where's the bait? Listen, man, if you can't find bait right now, just pack it in.
Listen, I took Eric out. He's good. I'm hoping he's joking.
But anyway, no, we definitely want to thank Captain Danny Garino for coming in, and Jason, those guys for at least putting something together. If you didn't get to see it, go back on the page and watch it. I didn't get to watch the
YouTube page.
Full episode. It's on the YouTube page. We'll try to post a link in this feed, but go back and check that out if you haven't already. And again, thanks for those guys for coming in and doing that for us. But as of right now, the last few weeks, and Ken talking about live bait and talking about chum, the one thing that I've noticed, James, over, I would say, the last 2.5, 3 weeks, is that the amount of bait that I'm getting and on the flats is where I'm getting my bait right now.
Right.
I've really reduced the amount that I'm required to have in my mind, right? For me, chumming is not quite as effective as it has been, all through spring. And that's normally what happens this time of year once that water starts heating up for me anyway. There's specific tides, specific times where I think that chum makes a difference. But quite honestly, I think in a lot of the places, 6, 8, 10 baits out, freebies, get them popping a little bit and start single fishing those or single baiting the fish. We've caught just as many fish as trying to unload your live well on them and really get them feeding, because it doesn't make much of a difference.
If and we're going to get into more of this transition discussion, but a lot of the transition's driven by water temp.
Sure.
So as we're getting into these warmer water temps, which I was seeing up to 83, 84 over the weekend, and a slack tide, or a slow tide that we dealt with really Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the appetite really isn't there anyway. So if you start rolling up, and the first thing you do is throw out, a couple scoops of bait, what I've noticed versus a month ago is, they get eaten and then nothing gets eaten thereafter.
Right.
It's not like March, when it's 72-degree water, when they'll just eat and eat and eat and eat, and, they have all that energy. They expend a lot of energy chasing down those chummers, and then it kind of just goes quiet. So I'm with you, definitely put out a few and see how that response is. Now, if you do that, you see a couple pops, you catch a couple fish, and it kind of shuts down. For 20 minutes later, it's not a bad idea to maybe try the same thing just to encourage them to eat again. But I definitely, try to stay away from, like you said, that heavy chum to start the bite. Definitely dial that back.
Yeah, and where I was going with that is sometimes it's tough getting bait on the flats. You get a lot of grass, you get a lot of pinfish, you get this, you get that. I've noticed that I'm pulling off when normally I'd probably throw 2 or 3 more times, but I'm still dumping back a scoop or 2 of bait, or I'm lending a scoop of bait to a buddy, or this and that. And so I say that to say, we don't need to kill every bait, and you don't have to black your live wells out to the max this time of year, fishing inshore. You just really don't need to, especially if you're going to be fishing for redfish, snook, and trout, because it's just not quite as effective. And that resource, the bait resource, is a little bit better left out there than you dumping 4 or 5 scoops back at the end of the day. So just a food for thought. Listen, I mean, you do what you want to do. A lot of guys, do like to have, until they can't put a single white bait in their live well. I'm just saying that A, you don't need it this time of year, and B, you're actually going to hurt those baits, and you're going to deplete the quality of your bait, especially if you're traveling into the backcountry in those slacker tides, high water temperatures.
Give them a little more space to move around in there, and a little more oxygen for each of them to soak up. I did notice that this weekend. This was the first weekend where I experienced a decent bait loss. On Friday, I fished a long time, and, going in the getaway, I think everybody felt that temperature increase as you're getting in there. But then on Saturday, had a couple trips also that when those water temps get up, you could feel it. You could feel it in the baits when you put one in your hand and put it on there. It's warm. It's a hot bait, and that's going on. So I experienced some lost bait in the well, just with the water temp. So that's usually the signal for me. I want the bait no matter what. I want to have enough. I don't want to run myself short, especially if you've got 2 trips in the day.
Sure.
But I do believe that you have to manage that carefully, especially if you're going to be on the water a long time, because you overload it. Now you're going to end up with 40% dead, in a few hours versus dial it back a little bit and have 10% of it die.
Right. Right. And like I said, we I'm fishing a lot of people. I'm throwing a lot of bait off, and still I'm dumping back enough bait to I could have chummed for another hour or so.
Easy.
So anyway, that's what the bait situation looks like. If you are looking for white bait, I would say pick a healthy grass flat with a lot of flow.
Yep.
Look for birds diving. Look for glass minnows. Look for pelicans. If you find the glass minnows, there's probably white bait close.
Yep.
There's been a lot of thready schools on the flats as well. Normally the thready schools are going to be the ones on the surface dimpling, almost looking like rain.
Mm-hmm.
And the white bait is more of a roll, more of a pop.
And you hear it a little like, and we were talking about this, is like when you're rolling on the flat in the morning, one thing I'm doing now that wasn't a habit for me was come in as quiet as possible, unless I know where it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm kind of moving around and I don't quite have that light yet to see in the water, is I'm really paying attention to the sound.
Absolutely.
Those white baits make a sound, and it's like a flicker, tickle the water sound that usually it's good. One thing I know, we saw a couple questions that people struggled. I can tell you in the Upper Bay that Friday and Saturday was a big struggle.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of boats out Friday for the events that were going down, the corporate events. It wasn't easy. We got it, but it wasn't easy. And then Saturday, we found it to be even more difficult. I know a lot of people fishing one of the events up there. I wasn't a part of it. Went to that with not nearly as much bait as they needed. So don't get frustrated if you were in the Upper Bay. But I will tell you, as I started making my rounds through different places in the Upper Bay and that afternoon, I've saw bait in a lot of places that it wasn't there a week before.
Right.
So it's
we're seeing, and you make a good point. And Manny, yes, I do run both of my main pumps that pump into my live well are the Keep Alive pumps, and so they are a Venturi style air infused pump that I get atomized air blowing up through my live well. The Canyon Bay live well, and I'll give Jason a lot of credit on that too, because he worked with those guys before I was involved with them, and it's the way that it's set up and with the pumps and the way we've got the drains, dual drains and dual bottom feed. That live well is really set up to guide in our area. It's set up to put a lot of bait in there. Whether you're going to go on the flats in some shallow, hot water, or you're going to pack it full, throughout the summer, it really does well with it. But you're right, you do need something like that. Keep Alive also makes an air stone, which is how I run my skiff. Now on my skiff, you've seen the setup that I've got there, so I've just got a Marine Metal Products 12-volt DC bubble box, and I've got both of the outputs, both of the hoses, going to a single Keep Alive round stone. It's about $40 for the stone, but it is a legit oxygen stone.
I need to get a couple of those. I have the Marine Metals version, and I think we were talking about that last time I was on your skiff, and I looked at the way your bubbles were coming out and the way mine are, and there's certainly a difference.
He put Tom, before he passed away, did a lot with that. Not even so much for our market, but he did a lot for Texas, Louisiana, South Carolina, those guys that were fishing in the backcountry and didn't do the recirc process we do. So having a lot of oxygen induced outside of fresh water coming in was a big game for him, and keeping aquarium fish alive and stuff like that. And so they spent a lot of time and effort developing those stones. And if you try one out, you'll see the difference. So you can go on his website. That's keepalive.net or keepalive.com. Either one of those websites will take you to his site. But you can go on there and you can find those stones. It's a really nice stone. It comes with 3 suction cups, and you can stick it right down on the bottom of your live well. And I promise you'll notice a difference. Yeah. And the way I had it set up real quick is that where my discharge from where my pump comes out is right where I've got the oxygen coming out. And so it almost kind of stirs it up in the live well where it sort of acts like a air-infused pump, but it's not. So something to try out if you do have problems with bait. But Anyway, let's talk a little fishing, and then we'll probably take a little break. But again, if you've got any questions, fire them off. We'll answer them. But a little fishing report. What I've noticed is a couple key things to kind of pinpoint that's happening on the flats. The bigger snook are definitely moving out. They're doing their pre-spawn. They're starting to move towards the deeper edges, starting to get out in the front of the island, starting to move off to the spore islands, to the bridges, to the passes, in those deeper areas. Setting up to do that spawn that's going to take place in the next few months.
Yep.
The redfish, in my opinion, the good schools that I was on, you can find them. You better find them early, and you better find them on some low water, because after that, like they traditionally do in the summer, they're going to beat it to the bushes, and they're going to be split up under the trees. There's redfish around, but that's what's taking place. Those redfish are not hanging out on the flats all day long like they were a month or two ago.
Right.
And then the trout, we're starting to see, in my opinion, some of the bigger aggregations of trout that we saw. I'm starting to see those split up. And if they haven't split up, they've definitely moved out to some deeper water.
Yeah.
But the bigger gator trout have slid in and are starting to mix in with the big, the snook and the reds. We caught a 25 and a half inch trout snook fishing last week, and it came out of the mangroves.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a foot off the trees, but I'm saying we were fishing the mangroves and we caught a 25 and a half inch trout.
Yeah.
So that's all kind of what's taking place, and that, to me, like you talked about, is a derivative of water temperature.
Sure.
That's why all that stuff's taking place. Real quick, the one other thing is the bait has made its move with that transition. And so, traditionally, early season, flats bait is normally south of where we like to fish. And as summer nears, that bait will push up into the bay, white bait I'm talking about, and move up into its bay on those flats. And I'm starting to see bait all the way up past Cockroach Bay.
Exactly.
When it crosses over that Cockroach Bay channel and it starts to make its way up to the river and heads up towards Simmons Park and starts getting up that far, what we see is a lot of game fish coming out and fishing those, or getting on those bars.
All the way up.
I was with some clients in the skiff about a week and a half ago, and we did an early morning trip. It was a trip actually you fished with us.
Mm-hmm.
when I ran the skiff, and we were able to get on the inside of the bar, but before most of the boats were inside the bar.
Yeah, I had to go elsewhere.
Yeah, and what we saw was really cool, and I've only seen it a couple times, but the glass minnows had come over the bar into like 10 inches of water, right? I mean, giant schools of glass minnows. And the snook were just having a heyday. Like, you were unloading your live well. They were out there free jumping and feeding, and we were catching them, picking them off. And I hadn't thrown a single piece of chum, which was good because my live well died that morning.
I remember.
And so we were picking the snook off. But what the coolest thing was all of a sudden one of those bait schools moved right towards our boat, because we were just the only boat out there.
Mm-hmm.
They stood right to our boat, and they were around our boat, and these snook were coming under the boat in like a school, feeding off these glass minnows, man.
Yep.
And this is a really cool thing to see. We haven't seen, and I haven't been catching snook out on the sandbars or out in the deeper potholes, and I am now. And so everything's moved out to catch the bait.
Yep.
Eventually, like we talked about, in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be out in the bay mackerel fishing, snapper fishing, tarpon fishing, and leave those guys alone and let them do their thing.
Yep.
So
we were talking, in that, when we said what we wanted to do with this show, we were going to talk about that transition, and you summed it up perfectly. And this week, I felt like a lot of my folks that were with me were really interested, whether they're from this general area, maybe thinking about getting into boating, but they were very inquisitive throughout their trip and kept asking, so what are you going to do when it's summer? Because I'm talking about this water temperature and how it's going to affect them. And I said, well, it's a good question. We still got to fish, and we don't fish by the tide. We fish by the time, 8 a.m. to 12 or whatever our schedule allows us to do with these folks. And they're like, well, how do you make that work when it gets so hot and the tides are slow? And I said, well, it's actually easy. You pinpoint in whatever window you have, isolate that best tide, because tide for these fish that we're talking about, these trout, redfish, and snook, is going to be even more, or it's really going to be the factor that's going to decide whether you have a successful trip or not. So if you look at that and say, hey, here's 2 hours of good tide, the other 2 hours or 4 hours when it's slack, I'm going to go do the snapper mackerel deal, which for me, I like snapper fishing on slower tides anyways.
Yep.
So, it's starting to get in that time. You're already seeing it. I'm seeing it as well. A lot of the same patterns you're talking about. But, not to worry. There's going to be a lot of other options out there to go and fish.
Yeah.
And honestly, you're probably going to put more fish in the boat during that time than you are chasing around the snook and redfish and trout on the flats.
You will, and a lot of times it's more comfortable. You get in some of these back bays, you get in some of these areas where a lot of these fish are staged up, and it's just so stagnant, it's so hot.
If you
at least if you
95 degrees, 90% humidity, and no seams, it's a great spot.
Right up your alley.
If you
Call James.
Call me.
He's all about it.
Yeah.
But we were talking about this the other day. And we got back in an area and we were fishing some redfish under the trees, and it got real hot. We were in this cove, and it just happened to be that's where the fish were, and that's where the opposite of the wind was. And I was like, look, guys, this is going to be torture, but we'll catch a few fish,
right?
And so we're sitting there, and we only caught one redfish. We fished up on the tree, we caught one. And, of course, questions start getting asked after about 10 minutes. Well, why don't you think they're eating? Are they, they over there? Or should I cast over here? And I'm going, well, have you ever sat down in a hot tub and had dinner? Like, you just don't do it. It's your body can't work that way.
No.
So that's what those fish are feeling.
Metabolism.
And so at certain times, that inshore bite is just going to be slow. You go to more of a cut bait. You go to fishing way up under that cover if you can. Otherwise, you go out in the bay and you do something different. And you're seeing it now. You'll build sort of a platform for your seasons that you fish, and you'll build a platform for your clients that are going to come fish with you, and it's enjoyable. You never know what you're going to do out there, but like you said, that slack tide and those weaker tides sometimes are better to be in the bay, and those stronger tides aren't so good, and you can slide in when that temperature change of water is flushing through those flats is generally when those inshore fish feed. So
same thing happens to us with the breeze. In the breeze, it's not as bad. When we've got stuff flowing over our bodies and our skin, it cools you down a little bit and gets you a little more apt to be active. But I can tell you this right now: when it's 90 degrees and it's just not blowing,
dude,
it's a sauna. You can't deal with it.
No, but
Eric can't eat, but he can pound drinks for a while in a hot tub.
There you go, man.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they'll eat a fly. I don't know. But
I'm
anyway,
excited for that time of year, though. I was hitting you up for some mackerel intel just because I hadn't done it yet. But I like it. I've made no secret about. This includes mackerel, snapper, reef fishing. Everything that goes along with bait fishing. Prior to guiding, it wasn't something I did, and I think you had the same experience where you really wanted to always be dialed in on redfish.
Yeah, no,
or
definitely.
Tarpon, or something very specific, not the mixed bag that kind of provides you.
You definitely, as you guide, and I'll go back and talk about Jason on this too. I'm sure if Jason could, he would just go snook fishing every single day. I know that's what he likes to do. That's his passion for fishing, and that's what he enjoys taking customers to go catch. For me, if it was me, I would say I would go chase redfish with every customer. If I could pick a fish, that's what I would, because that's what I enjoy going to do. The truth of the matter is, snook fishing is not going to be good every day, and red fishing is definitely not going to be good every day. And if you want to be a successful guide, you better find more good days than bad days, and a combination of them two still ain't going to get you by. So you better figure out how to tarpon fish or grouper fish or snapper fish, or do something to add to your repertoire to where you can be a full-time, full year-round fishing guide, whether it's sheepshead, black drum. You better be able to go catch fish. And when you can lay that to the side and really figure out how to fish this entire bay and the species that exist in it, in my opinion, then you'll be able to be successful every day, because that's the only way to do it, based on the weather and the tides and the water temperatures and this and that and the red tides and all the other stuff. If you don't diversify and learn the ins and outs of a couple different things, it's going to be tough on you. You're going to have bad days.
But I come in
a lot of bad days.
And you're given the guide perspective, and I'm all for it. Obviously, that's what I'm doing. But
But angler-wise too, recreationally
too. The recreational, especially when we talk about a lot of the the hot topic lately is the closures. And personally, everything I want to eat is out there. It's not in there. It's not in the trees. It's not in the on the flats. I want to be out there if I'm going to keep fish. So when I say like we're giving the guide perspective, I think for the for the angler, I wish I knew now or I had the repertoire of styles of fishing to go back when I was a recreational guy, because think about it, as a recreational angler, odds are you're probably somebody who, if you're lucky, you get to go out once a week, Saturday or Sunday, right? Well, if you're stuck with a poor tide or whatever condition's going to make inshore fishing, as we call it, flats fishing, a challenge, instead of beating my head against the wall like I'd always done, I would have loved to better understand the snapper, mackerel, grouper, cobia, all the other things that this fishery can provide. So, we're saying to keep a bent rod for clients, but I want to encourage you, if you're somebody who this resonates with, where you're always chasing snook, redfish, and trout, man, you're going to have a good time. You're going to have a ball out there doing that and seeing the mixed bag and catching a variety of species, being able to take something home if that's important to you. So, just keep that in mind as we kind of come at you from the guide perspective, how much there is to offer from just taking the family out, getting the guys together, So that's my take on it.
And it's funny because I do take quite a few people every year that traditionally would catch snook, redfish, trout, locals. Maybe they live, in the state, maybe not in our area or whatever, but you take them out in our bay and you show them the life that's out there.
Yep.
A lot of times, even on a tarpon trip, I'll book somebody for a tarpon trip, and a lot of times we'll catch Spanish mackerel, groupers, snappers, hook and land a couple you know what I mean? A shark, a cobia comes up in the chum slick. Yep. You just never know what's going to take place, Whereas when you're inshore, you kind of got an idea, right?
I can even tell you, pull on the spot, we're going to catch snook. We're going to catch redfish.
Well, we're
going to catch 22% trout. 78%
the things that I've seen in the bay, outside the bars, right?
That's a good
question. It's incredible,
Shane asked a really good question. How much bigger do I need to go on rod and reel for reef compared to the inshore? Honestly, I would say the majority of the fish we're catching out there, we're probably doing it on the same tackle that we run our inshore trips with, but adding a couple to the arsenal of the bigger sticks.
And as you progress too, you'll build a totally separate arsenal.
I've already begun.
that you're going to use when you transition to bait fishing, because I'll always have a couple inshore rods, and that's really a diversion. That's plan C, right? That's, hey, the wind's blowing. Hey, we can't get baits down the tides. Hey, it's too rough. All right, well, let's take the bait we got and let's go inshore and do something inshore with this light tackle stuff. But for me, what I've noticed is when I start making the move, I bust out my 7'6" medium or my 7-foot medium stuff, 20-pound class gear, and then I've got the 8-foot tarpon type stuff, spinning rods. And if I'm gonna go bottom fishing, like serious bottom fishing, I'll bring my big open face pin bottom crankers. So I've got that whole arsenal set up to be able to do that. And the reason is, I used to traditionally snapper fish with my inshore stuff, right? My 10, 12 pound, 15 pound gear. And what I've found over the last, 2 or 3 years is I normally hook a lot of grouper.
Yeah.
And when I start bumping up and I go overkill a little bit for snapper on the gear, not the line and everything, but on the gear size, I get those groupers. I'm landing those groupers, whereas opposed to losing them. The other side of that is a juvenile tarpon, 50, 60, 70 pounds. They're real common for coming up when you're snapper fishing, especially late summer. Cobia, all those other fish, a big shark, something like that. And so what I've done is I've really just started to standardize on that medium-sized tackle.
So more like a medium-heavy, 10 to 20 pounds.
Yeah, when I'm bait fishing, just to give us that shot of landing those bigger fish when they show up. And it's sort of proved true that we're landing a little bit more of those fish. I had a client, he watches the show. We were fishing the reef for snapper, fishing cut thread fins, little cut thread fins, inch wide cut thread fin on number one long shanks. That's all I had. I ran out of small hooks. 1 long shanks, 25-pound leader, 10-pound test on a 7'6" bull bay and a 3000 series spinning reel.
Mm-hmm.
He fought a 100-pound tarpon, dude, for an hour and 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, it was to the point where I was like, all right, look, we're going to have to try to leader the fish, because if not, we're going to have to kill it to get it to the boat, right? And, I mean, I got it to the boat, touched the clipper, and it went one time, and I held on to the leader, and, of course, it snapped.
Goes,
you know?
Yeah.
But my point is, those fish are going to show up.
You could be a little more prepared.
They're going to show up, have that cobia rod ready.
Yeah.
That's another one that, especially in the next month or so, there's going to be a lot of cobia around. I ran some markers that I like to cobia fish on, and I called Rick. It was after that event when I'm on my way back.
Yeah.
And I said, I just saw the biggest cobia that I've ever seen, and I'll stand true. It was a massive cobia. I caught one of the medium ones off of him, but I didn't get the big one. But they're around, so that's something you want to be looking for too. For those guys that are, for lack of a better term, butthurt about not being able to keep trout. You got your cobias, you got your triple tails, you got your snappers, you got your groupers, you got your Spanish mackerels.
Yep.
You got your grunts.
Grouper's only 2.5 weeks away, man.
So it's all going to be right there for you.
So what changes in and just to keep this conversation going, what changes in terms of the bait choice? So does anything change for you when you go from planning an inshore trip to planning a reef or bait
Absolutely.
trip?
Yeah, no, definitely there's a different mentality. There's a different preparation.
Yeah.
Not only the day before, but leading up to it.
Mm-hmm.
For me, weather is a lot more important.
Yeah.
I'm going to be taking customers and clients out into the middle of the bay where, it's not that far to run back in, but the way storms work inside the bay, it can be a little freaky. If at least if I know bad weather's coming, I can sort of prepare for it.
Yeah.
Prepare the clients for it. It's not such a surprise. But so I'd say weather, definitely I keep a little bit better eye on weather. Bait, for me, is not quite as important. When I start moving out into the bay, having a slap live well full of perfect sized greenbacks, not as important as it would be if I'm going inshore. Last year, I wrote an article about the transition into bay fishing. And one of the things I remember from the article, and it came from me doing a seminar and some guys asking me some questions. And one of the questions is when do I start to go target the snapper, and when do I know that the snapper fishing is going to be good? And it's just you got to go check, right, and see. It's going to be closer to the full moons in June and July is when they're going to do their spawns, so they're going to aggregate, in bigger schools. But also one of the things that for me personally that I like to look for is when we have our spawn of bait. When that small bait starts showing up and the bait and the flats are just loaded with, 1 inch, inch and a half greenbacks, it's time to go snapper fishing.
Yep.
It all matches. And so that's when you can pull up to the flat.
And that's my favorite bait.
And that's my favorite bait to go snapper fishing. And so when you build that, the redfish, snook, and trout thing, it's not overplayed, and there's always something to be learned and looked at and figure out. And when you start picking up these key points, and kind of knowing when to go target those fish, you can be successful and do some really neat stuff.
Yep.
So those are a couple things that I look for when I'm going to start doing the different things that I like to do. The one thing that I will say right now that I've been really happy with is the bay is really clean. The bay is really clear. And so, the pelagic fish, even the big kingfish, the cobias, the triple tails, a lot of people don't know that the triple tail migrate in and out. They're not just here all year round. I'm sure there's might be some residents, but it's a run. It's a pelagic, so they do migrate. And so those fish are inside our bay right now. Plus, we've got clear conditions. So if you're a sight fisherman, you can go look around in a few areas, and you're going to find those triple tail cobias. You may even find some kingfish laid up still.
The kingfish are definitely still around inside the bay.
Right.
I know that. We've had a few as of late. I've been fishing mostly upper bay the last week and a half, but prior to that, it was something where we were taking an hour out and just kind of running through the bait pods and seeing what kind of baits we could drift out there and get them. And we were getting them. We weren't as prepared as we like to be with stinger rigs and all that, but just throwing on the mackerel rigs, we'd get them here and there. and definitely some that we'd lose as well. So the kingfish are definitely still there, and
Yeah.
that water, it is very clean. I'm used to seeing pretty cloudy, milky stuff this time of year.
We haven't had the rain yet.
Yeah,
You know, the rain hasn't started
yet. Even with the rain
yet.
we got last week, though, in parts of the bay that I expected to roll up to and see iced tea, that tea, that's what I call it up north. Man, it's got that tint, but it's clear. I'm used to rolling in there, and when I'm in 4 feet of water, not seeing the bottom,
Right.
and it's still crystal clear. It's just tinted west wind.
It'll milk it up, and it's coming. Just in general, the bay will start to get a little bit more foggy, and some of those fish are going to be harder to see. So, you get a good clear day. Take a minute, buzz off the flat, and go look around out in the bay. You might find something kind of interesting that you never thought would be out there. So,
no doubt.
There's a lot of big. The other thing that we never really talk about them enough, but the big schools of jacks are starting to show up out in the bay, feeding on the threadfin schools and the glass minnows and this big bait hatch that we're going to have.
Give me some jacks.
And so that's something pretty cool. Where if let's just say you've got a bigger boat, that you can't get on the flats, and most of the time, or certain times of the year, you struggle out there in the bay. If you're the cuddy cabin guy, or you're the big pontoon guy, or maybe you've just got a little bit larger 30-foot boat, the local reefs, the edges of the channels, look for those big bait schools, look for the birds diving just out in the middle of the bay, and now's the time when all that stuff's taking place, man. Big jacks, big kings. Last year, there were some guys that were catching big redfish out in the middle of the bay.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, out in the 40-foot middle of the bay.
Yep.
It
was happening often.
Yes, and they were running into these big schools of giant redfish, like 40-inch redfish. They were coming up in the bay, and to be honest with you, I probably drove by them 3 or 4 times thinking it was ladyfish or jacks or bonitas or mackerels or something like that. And that's something that I always tell myself every year that, when you're running to another spot or you're, heading out in the morning or something and you do have the clients on the boat, to make myself stop and throw a few times in some of those schools, because the bigger fish, even if it is ladyfish, are around those areas.
They want to eat too.
So,
yeah, and then Travis brought up caught snook on the reefs, man. Last year, I remember, when grouper, when we were just beginning to start to target grouper, we were getting more over slot snook than we were grouper.
Yep.
And I'll tell you what, a 35-inch snook in 35, 40 feet of water.
It's awesome.
It's awesome. I mean, it feels like a grouper, except the fight lasts a heck of a lot longer.
Right.
You're like, oh, man, here's a gag. He's going home, and then you're like, wait a second.
We got a few on plugs. We got a few on plugs, trolling plugs.
Trolling plugs, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Even when it was getting cooler last year in the fall, a lot of snook still left out there.
Yep. And important to that is, the reefs are so close. They're closer than what people think they are.
Especially in Tampa Bay. I mean, they're right there to dump off.
It's very close for a fish, If you're in a john boat and you're trying to get out there, you go, man, that's a pretty good ways.
Yeah.
But, hey, for a fish, they can stroll out there no problem, man.
Easy.
So, but yeah,
so said he got one 35 feet.
There you go.
Yep.
There you go, man. They're out there.
One thing I've noticed caught a 20-inch snook and a quad marker. There you go. All right,
it's all happening.
Here's a couple examples right here. I'm definitely excited about the grouper fishing more this year than in past. About a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, had one of those trips where it was just I was next to catching bait with David and one of his friends.
Yeah. Yep.
And they want to do basically anything but flats fish.
Sure.
And, it was a pretty tough tide. Tarpon weren't biting. So I just went and checked with these big threadies that we had, some grouper holes. I don't know. We probably had about 30 to 40 big threadies, ready to do tarpon fishing with. And I'd say we put a double-digit number of keeper-sized grouper in just the first 2 or 3 places we checked.
Yeah.
And then ran out of bait and went and did something else.
Right.
But generally when – I know in this time of year when it's warm, I don't see that number of quality-sized fish. You tend to go through a lot of 14 to 18 or 20-inch fish to get that one keeper.
Right.
And this was the exact opposite.
Right.
We're seeing more fish that would have gone home than the ones that we would have had to throw back. So that's encouraging.
And that's going to be, that's going to be a heavily targeted species coming into this season, definitely for sure. which, hopefully that they can, enough people can satisfy their taste with some groupers and snappers and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Now them love bugs, hey, that's for the birds, man.
I'm so glad I haven't fished near a bridge lately.
Woo, buddy.
I'm looking at those folks out there, targeting the tarpon right now.
Dude, it is gnarly. The bugs themselves, the love bugs themselves, it doesn't bother. Like if they touch me,
No.
Like that's not. But it's what they do to the boat. Oh my gosh, bro.
And in the process of cleaning it, like using I'll tell you one that's awful.
Oh.
Go to the Gandy boat cleaning station. You could have a team of people trying to clean your boat, and they could not keep up with the love bugs.
They're falling right on it
because they love those roads, man. They love I don't know what it is, but they're all over it. And as you're cleaning your boat, they're just swarming you.
You're right, Manny. I told a customer, they showed up. They've been here for a little while now because I saw them a few weeks ago, if not even longer. But I remember the first day we were fishing a group event, actually, a corporate event, and they started landing on the boat. We were in an area, and they go, "Oh, the tarpon are here."
Yeah.
And the guy goes, "What?" And I go, "Oh, the tarpon are here." And that's like 6 love bugs.
So are you
on the
love
boat.
bugs or white butterflies?
I'm love bugs for me.
Butterflies.
I mean that's just my opinion. I mean when those love bugs start to do their thing, it just seems that the tarpon are here or they're close. But
dryer sheets.
Dryer sheets will work on your truck.
We're talking about like your truck. You might have like 50 on there.
Dude, when they land on your boat and they smash them on the deck.
Manny, my T-top looked like it. I have just a stainless T-top, all right, or aluminum, whatever it is on it. But it looked like it was powder coated black.
Yeah, it's gnarly, dude.
It's everywhere, man. Dryer sheets. I need them in bulk, man. I need them in thousands to cover how much I've seen. Now, what I've seen hasn't been that bad. To some of the guys I've seen pictures of,
the whole boat's just
where
black.
The whole boat's just black. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Oh.
All right, James is with me. Both
it's
love
bad.
bugs and white butterflies. Cool. But yeah, I've always been, ever since I was little, white butterflies.
Yeah.
That's what I've been told. I did that today, and it didn't work at all. I'm assuming he's talking about dryer sheets. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to – dryer sheets just remove the ones you've killed on your paint to keep it from doing any damage.
Right. Hey, have you ever heard –
Kenny, you don't just tape dryer sheets to your T-top or your head to keep them away.
I will say this, though. Y'all, somebody told me one time that dryer sheets will keep mosquitoes and bugs away from you, and they will.
Coffee grinds will work.
Like, I took them – we were fishing – man, where were we fishing? Maybe it was Louisiana or something, and we didn't have a lot of resources. But I took those dryer sheets and I wrapped them and I put them in my hat, in the inside brim of my hat right here, and they worked, man.
Yeah.
They kept the bugs at bay a little bit around my head. So there's another use for those dryer sheets, man. They actually, which is kind of scary, right? I mean, the hell's in that thing?
Right. Well, as much as we use them in our dryer on my clothes, hopefully there's a little bit of that. Plus you got to get them wet. Yeah. The pressure washer. Yeah, the pressure washer works. What I'm saying is, as you're doing it, there's more invading the boat. So, there's just no way to keep up with it at the Gandy wash station.
Right.
And those dryer sheets. So what I've actually been doing is, this has been a very busy year for me. One big challenge I'm having as someone who's running every day is the smell of my jacket and bibs.
Oh, dude.
I don't have the air out station where I roll back to the ramp and just get to hang them up and let them sit all day. Mine go in a hatch.
I just like coiling them up in a hatch.
Yeah.
It's just
so I put them in a hatch.
Makes me feel good in the morning.
Forget to wash those.
Woo, baby.
So the most important, these dryer sheets for me are very important to my bibs and jacket. Stuffing one in there for like 10 minutes before I have to put them on, or else I would pass right out.
I actually there was a point where I had thought about getting two full sets.
Yeah.
For each day.
Alternate.
To rotate them. But then you just kind of get used to the smell. The problem is nobody around you ever gets used to the smell, James.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
when you shake their hand and they go,
yeah,
like that, that's when you know you're doing it right, bro. You're doing it right.
We're so immune to it, but every day, like it seems like once I'm done catching bait, after the yesterday's bait grime that resides on and in the jacket and bibs mixes with the fresh bait grime and the sweat and all that, and I take it off, that's when it hits me. So it's like, dude, Eric was out there because he went with me to get bait one day, and I mean, I pulled this thing out, And
that's when you just don't put it on. That's when.
But you know what? I didn't have extra.
Oh, my bad.
Jeez, Travis, what are you doing,
Oh
buddy?
man.
That shirtless problem solved. No, I'm too sensitive.
I have been. That's what I've been doing.
I can't do it, man.
That's what I've been doing, was just taking my shirt off in the morning, and especially when it's hot, man. I bring an extra shirt.
Yeah, but you've been in the gym. I mean, you're ready for shirtless bait season.
No.
I'm not.
That's where I was going, Rick.
Repulsive.
So your bibs are one thing.
Yeah.
But the net that's where I fail. I can keep the bibs
Well, I'm learning that too.
I can keep the bibs close to being tolerable, but the net.
Listen, the
net is where I struggle, especially on the flats, bro.
Yeah.
Because I get done and I'm just like, this mess, and so I just shake it. I try, but there's always that bulldog pinfish, dude. These like 3/4 up the net,
and you just don't want to keep shaking.
And I'm just done with it. I'm like,
you're sick of getting poked
teach
in
him
the
a
fingers.
lesson. But then when you get him in the morning and you forget about him and you do that first sling and you load that net and he slings across the boat and slams into the gunnel and then smears down the side.
Oh man, he's ripe.
That's where it.
I just hope I
gave
my boat to the guy today to do a little gel coat work for me on a ding I had, and as I was leaving my house this morning, I was like, man, I didn't clean my net for like 4 days in a row. Sat there all day yesterday, Mother's Day, in a closed hatch, just steaming up.
You're hoping he don't open that.
If he opens it, he may just tell me to come get the boat off his lot.
Come get your boat.
So, Eric, be very careful. So, in all seriousness, there's a lot of side effects to cleaning your net with fabric softener that I've learned that you want to be careful with. One is you can over soften the net. Like, you can do that too much to where the net becomes so soft that it's unmanageable. Well, that's number one. Number two is fabric softener in the liquid form is very hard to fully rinse, even to the point where you think you fully rinsed it. It's getting on your bait, and if you make the mistake of dropping that net in the well, like your ropes that have that saturated fabric softener, so I just err on the side of caution with how often you do that. A really good rinse is probably the way to do it. On a dirty net. So just keep that in mind. With the fabric softener, there have been times many years ago when I would lose bait in my well and be like, damn, but it sure smells good in my live well.
Yeah. Well, you can't like drop fabric, pour fabric softener in on the bait.
No, but I'm telling you, even when you lay it out and you spray it for 30 minutes, even then I knew fabric softener with bait is not a good idea. But you rinse it where you think it's done.
But see, James, what this boils down to is that's when having your net smelling good mattered.
Yeah. It doesn't.
It doesn't matter, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
done. No more there.
If you charter more than 100 trips a year and I can pull out your cast net 10 random times and it smell like a baby's bottom.
Somebody get this in quotes here.
Hey, you got a problem.
Yep.
You ain't catching enough bait. You probably hitting the bait boat. You probably hitting the bait boat. You got to be hitting the bait boat.
Yeah, you should smell Dustin Pack's boat. It smells like
fiberglass,
it's
like fresh fiberglass.
It's like new car smell in there. Flies smell good. There's not a single blade of grass underneath any hatch lids.
Dude.
But just picking on you, Dustin. But yeah, hey, there is something we've been helping promote. Dustin, who was at our last event, the Fly Fishing Film Tours at Hyde Park Villages this Saturday, 3 to 9 p.m. Silent auction benefiting Tampa Bay Waterkeeper. This has been through the ringer since that event.
Nice hat, man.
Yeah, I love it. I gotta reach out to him and get some more.
Yeah,
because it's really cool. But yeah, so definitely Dustin, and feel free to send us a link or anything through social media that we can help post for you. In addition to that, I know we've only got a few minutes left. You and I next Wednesday, right?
We are
22nd. Yeah, so the 22nd, which is next Wednesday, we're going to be doing a tarpon seminar here. Not going to be live or anything. You got to show up in person. But it's going to be in the store, Tampa Fishing Outfitters at 6:30. Probably for about an hour and a half. So we'll do our thing and then maybe chat it for a little while afterwards. But we're going to be talking all things tarpon, which should also coincide with a nice movement of fish our way.
Absolutely. No, it's we got a moon coming up and it's going to work. Real quick, I'm going to answer Rick. Where's he at?
Rick is right there.
Right there. Rick gets the wild card. Rick, You man, Rick will clean that net. It don't matter. That net will be clean in the morning.
Yeah.
But then again, you're talking to a guy that's got 2 girls and never changed a poopy diaper.
Right.
Like if I fart too close to him,
yeah.
he squeals like a 2-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
I can talk smack because he's not here. What else can we say about him?
Yep. You would think listen,
but
I don't know what to make of the scum line on that boat or the color on that Ranger.
Or
how if he does
it's camo,
clean
that's
his,
for sheepshead
all
season.
Right, if he does clean his net to
that's
that
for
degree,
sheepshead season.
we got to talk about that scum line, dude. He was even. This is when you know your scum line is bad. When we were talking about miles per gallon on our engines the other night after this show at
like, well, if I
House,
clean my scum line,
he's like, I'm probably losing a full mile per gallon right now just because of the growth underneath the boat.
Yeah, could be.
And I was like,
could be.
Yes, at least.
But when you get Rick around a school of redfish, it's like cane pulling.
Yeah.
They come right to it. It's like the oyster bar.
Yeah.
They just come right and they
Dang,
sit.
Guys, look at that oyster bar.
Yeah, if you're real quiet,
yeah.
you know. But now he's got the grizzly cooler on there, and I'm sure they like to slam that lid, so he he probably can't get them this year. But the other thing, guys, is for those of you that haven't, for those of you that don't know and are into red fishing, obviously our area has been closed down. I do want to talk just for a second. If you haven't noticed, I'm wearing my jersey for this year. We will be going to Crystal River in lieu of coming to Ruskin. The Ruskin event was supposed to be this Saturday, the 18th, May 18th. But as a result of FWC's initiatives and closing down the redfish in our area, the IFA has decided to not cancel the tournament, but relocate it up to Crystal River. So me and Cuz are going to head up that way like chickens with our head cut off.
Ever fished it?
A very long time ago. I'll tell you where I have fished. I fished in an area called Ozello. I had an uncle that lived up there, and we'd fish, around there, around the oyster bars. I couldn't even tell you a single thing about where I was and to get back there. But we're looking forward to it. It's always fun finding a new place to go fish. I enjoy it.
Liverpool, he said, is that like Little League? You sleep in it till the day of the tournament?
Yes.
You never take your jersey off?
Yes, I do.
Excited.
Hey, look, bro.
Well, what's funny, Steve, you'll get a kick out of this. When I saw him when he was walking up
NASCAR
stuff. I beat him here. I was like, what is Travis? What NAS? I didn't know he was in a NASCAR.
NASCAR, bro.
Yeah.
That's it, man.
But good deal, man. Well, definitely good luck. I know some guys have been popping in who are fishing up there too.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Exciting, I'm
excited. We're gonna take the tower boat and go up there and hopefully come back with a lower unit. I know a lot of guys are gonna make a long run. That's just not in it for me. We're gonna go up, like we said. We're gonna go up and enjoy it. Get a qualification tournament in to go fish the championship, and hopefully, spend some time and find a few quality fish to bring to the scale. You never know. That's the nice thing about tournaments. Yeah. So Jason and his partner Brian are going up there also. So we extend a good luck token to those guys. I'm sure we'll run into them at some point, maybe even team up. But they're going up there, so we want to wish them luck too. But yeah, other than that, like you said, we got a tarpon seminar coming up.
Yeah.
Next week.
Yeah, which happens to be when I'll really start kicking off for tarpon season with.
My first trip's next week, so that'll work out good. And we'll go over equipment, we'll go over tactics, we'll go over bait, the whole 9 yards. So watch for that. We'll put a flyer out on our Facebook page for that to remind you guys. It'd be good. I'm sure we'll probably have some little bit of food or some drinks.
I don't know what we got going on. Hopefully, I always like food and drinks. Yeah,
like
so just stay tuned on the Tampa Fishing Outfitters Facebook page. That's going to be your main source of updates. And also, if you can't help us out, if it's something you're going to, I don't know who's been in the shop lately, but we don't quite have the room we used to. So we're trying to figure out how we're going to, fit everybody. So we're really trying to get it dialed in as to how many people are going. So if you get a chance, try to log on Tampa Fishing Outfitters Facebook page and just RSVP. Let us know if you plan on coming. That way you can get the best.
Now, was that on the event? Go to the event. So go to the event and say you're going or not going, and we'll use that as a kind of a close count to what we got coming. And we'll share that on our page in the next few days and over the next week so that you guys can
definitely come out. One thing I could tell you even from doing the seminars is the feedback I get, to be directly here in front of us and be able to ask the questions and talk with other guys. Well, we're going to be hosting the event, but there's going to be a lot of seasoned tarpon fishermen in there too. So there's going to be a lot of those questions you always wish you could just sit down and ask somebody. You're going to be able to do that and get yourself better. The more and more I talk to people about tarpon fishing, the more I realize how many people are kind of intimidated to do it. And, we're going to be sharing not just some secrets, but some etiquette, and I think that's what maybe scares guys a lot off is when you see all these boats in the past, all these boats on the beach,
Right.
So that's definitely something I want to talk about. We're there because that seems to be, I would say, for the guy who's just trying to get out there on the weekends and maybe hasn't crossed that threshold to tarpon fishing yet. That actually is the question people don't want to ask on how to approach that, but it seems to be what's holding them back from going out there and doing it. So
sure,
we're going to talk
sure,
about
and we're going to cover all that. The other nice thing too, and then we're going to wrap it up, is you're in a store that has all the gear.
Everything
you're
you need.
in a place that, if you're looking for a new tarpon setup, if you're looking, depending on which style of tarpon fishing you want to do or that you like to do or what area you're going to fish in, there's probably going to be somebody in this building that can point you in the right direction to catching a tarpon. We also do want to extend the invitation out to any other local guides, any guys that do tarpon fish. Let's make it a nice little event for everybody to come out and have a good time.
Yeah.
Maybe I can learn a thing or two, you can learn a thing or two, show a thing or two, and we all become better tarpon fishermen. So at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. That's why we do this. So again, guys, we appreciate you joining us for another hour of Tampa Fishing Outfitters Live Fishing Report. Myself, Captain Travis, Captain James. Be here next week, same place, same time.
Yep. So show Monday, 7 p.m. next week.
Monday,
Seminar,
7 p.m.
6:30 p.m. Wednesday. We'll see you then, guys. Tight
Guys, we
lines. Till
appreciate
then.
it.